The name's Bourne. Jason Bourne. How you guys doing out there? My name is Karl and I'll be reviewing the Bourne Supremacy, which is directed by Paul Greengrass, not Doug Liman, and once again stars Matt Damon as assassin Jason Bourne. The Bourne Supremacy is one of the few times where my opinion is actually a little bit unique. Because a lot of people view the Bourne Supremacy as the weakest in the trilogy or just the worst of the trilogy. They think it's not as good as the first one. In my opinion, rewatching this film last night, I can positively say that I like the Bourne Supremacy a little bit more than the Bourne Identity. This review will contain spoilers, you have been warned, so if you have not seen the Bourne Supremacy, please watch this film and come right back to this review. In this excellent sequel, Jason Bourne, played marvelously by Matt Damon, is starting to recall these flashbacks about something that happened in Berlin, but he's starting to recount on who he once was. And he has to become an assassin in this film to survive once not only Marie is killed, but he's framed for the deaths of 2 CIA agents. With the Bourne Identity, I stated that that film was a thinking man's action movie. Those are the exact words I stated. It is a thinking man's action film where you need to sit down and think about everything you just saw. Thinking about the plot. It's not just about the action and showing spectacle, it's also about the plot. Within the first 5 minutes of the film, it perfectly sets up Bourne's location and his vulnerability. He's of course living halfway around the world in India, and he has Marie now. He has chemistry with Franka Potente, and I hope I pronounced that right because I had someone basically tell me how to say it. I think their chemistry was spectacular. You could feel the relationship. You can feel the conflict going in within Jason at the exact same time. This creates vulnerability for Bourne because Marie is a character that can always be in danger. She's not an assassin like him, she barely knows how to handle a gun. In the following scene, we're introduced to a new character named Kirill, played by Karl Urban. If you guys thought Clive Owen was really awesome in the Bourne Identity, which I of course did, Karl Urban knocks him out of the park within the first 2 seconds. This guy is the total embodiment of a badass assassin slash hitman. I mean seriously, if this guy grabbed a sniper rifle and pretended to be an assassin, I would believe it. The way he's dressed, the way he moves, the way he subtly walks through hallways, the way he just works throughout the shadows. In this scene, we're also introduced to a woman known as Pamela Landy, played marvelously by Joan Allen. This woman is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated actresses of all time because no one ever talks about her for some reason. And honestly, with all the films I've seen Joan Allen in, this is my favorite performance of hers. To me, she just feels like an agent. She has those agent qualities with her. She's always invested in the mission. And within this scene, there are 2 CIA agents who are trying to capture the Nesky files, which I'll explain later. But of course, Kirill sabotages that mission, kills them, and is now ordered to kill Jason. I believe it's at this point in the movie where you realize the style has desperately changed. And I think a lot of people who targeted this movie saying it was formulaic, I don't think it's right, because in many ways, I think Bourne Supremacy changes the formula up. When I reviewed the Bourne Identity, I said that it did include some quick-cut editing, but it wasn't as shaky as the sequels were, and it was shot like a contained thriller with tons of awesome action scenes. The Bourne Supremacy, to me, is actually shot like a documentary. There are tons of close-ups, zoom-in and zoom-outs of particular characters, tons of shaky cam, but it's not really the shaky cam that blinds your eyes. It's cut seamlessly at just the right moments to give you all the awesome action and mystery you can want. Paul Greengrass decided to use a lot of handheld cams because he wanted to show the urgency of many scenes. And it absolutely shows because this movie is one of the most relentlessly non-stop films I have ever seen. I was absolutely blown away by just how non-stop it all is, but it gives you a plot. It's not just a straightforward action film with action sequences. The plot is absolutely convoluted, but you have to sit there and think, just like with the Bourne Identity. But to me, the Bourne Supremacy gave a lot more vulnerability to its hero, particularly in the scene where Marie dies. This sequence is extremely essential to the entirety of the film, because Bourne has just lost Marie. Now let's think about the character of Bourne. Since he became an assassin, Marie is the only person that was ever close to him. She could be considered a lover of his. She's the only one that has really been brought into his life. However, with her death, this adds a personal drive to his character. He's now out for revenge. He has a deep personal reason to go out to kill these guys. And at the same time, he's being framed. This just adds on to the entire vulnerability because he's now a fugitive. Wherever he's going, wherever country he's visiting, he's always on the move. When you have imperfections or flaws to a character, it always makes them better. So of course we get an exposition scene, but it's done in a way like the Mission Impossible films, where we want to know what they're talking about. Now yes, this can come across as a regular exposition scene where the audience is given information and things we need to know. In the scene, we're also introduced to the character Abbott, played by Brian Cox, reprising his role from the Bourne Identity, and we found out that he's actually a little bit dirty. We discovered that those files the CIA agents were after were called Nesky files, and those files would have revealed some kind of mole in the system, or some kind of traitor in the system that was giving away $20 million worth of CIA headquarters money. To which they of course believed Bourne was involved in some way, shape, or form with it. But they also believed that Conklin, who was Bourne's former employer, was involved as well. Next we come to an interrogation scene that is actually really cool. I really enjoy this scene because it's quick, it's fast, and something interesting about it is that when Bourne punches the CIA agent in the head, Matt Damon actually knocked him out in real life. Something else I picked up while watching the Bourne Supremacy is that every single gadget or every single weapon, whatever you want to call it, that Bourne uses, is all real and practical. He just takes SD cards or a cell phone or a voice recorder, and it's just that simple. There's no James Bond, Die Another Day level invisible car gadgetry used. He is an assassin who uses the environment and uses anything and everything at his disposal in order to survive. This then leads to a brilliant, and I mean brilliant, fight scene between him and the last Treadstone agent. If any of you thought the fight in the Bourne Identity was good, which it pretty much was in that hotel room, the opening 10 seconds of this fight just blows it out of the water completely. This fight scene is one of the primest examples of why the Bourne Supremacy just improved upon the first one in almost every way. Kicks and punches are flying everywhere, but it just feels so realistic. Everything about it is realistic, and that's because every single effect in this movie is done practically. Yes, I am particularly sure about that one. Paul Greengrass stated that he didn't use any CGI in this movie, and it shows. Everything in this movie looks practical, and we of course can't forget this moment. Next we come to the infamous scene where Bourne is literally pointing a sniper rifle at Pamela Landy, and he requests Julia Stiles' character Nikki to go talk to him because he's aware that she knows exactly what his missions are, since we find out before that she was in charge of discovering the mental health of the agents as well as keeping their files. There's also great tension in this scene because they need exactly 90 seconds to track Bourne, and the call lasts for exactly 88 seconds. That was so close. Unfortunately, the interrogation with Nikki does not go well because she has no idea about his mission in Berlin at all. The only other person that does is Conklin, and now that man is dead. So now Bourne is trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and he eventually finds out exactly where the room is. Once he goes in there, he begins to remember certain things. He remembers what the bathroom looked like, and then all of a sudden the entire memory comes back to him in pieces, but we get to understand what happened in the scene. Now at the beginning of the film it was very muddled, but there's one quick cut shot showing that there's actually a family. It's not just the father, but he obviously had a wife and a daughter. This just goes to show that Jason Bourne is a true killer. Whatever he is assigned to do, he's gonna do it, no matter what. This then leads to another amazing chase sequence that has awesome action written all over it, but something happens right before the chase scene that I think is actually very subtle. Jason Bourne literally looks at a map for about 10 seconds and knows exactly where he needs to go. That's just how fast his mind works. Now, two important things happen in this scene. For one, Jason Bourne actually gets a limp. This is the first time that he's been physically damaged in this movie, because he's of course emotionally damaged over the death of Marie. The second thing that happens is much more subtle. When Bourne enters the train, he's seen breathing very heavily, and the shot lingers on him for 15 seconds. This is honestly the very first time where we've ever seen Bourne out of breath. I'm pretty sure Bourne was thinking to himself, wow, this is the first time that I could have been really killed. Because this man was surrounded with a limp. Behind the scenes, a young CIA agent shows Abbott something that he thought was very confusing about Jason Bourne, and the idea that he might not have been involved. However, when he's asked to show it again, this happens.
Show me again. Alright. Well, you put a full
We actually discovered that Brian Cox's character has links to the Nesky files, which is of course exploited by Bourne in an amazing sequence. Now I want you guys to focus on the shot where Bourne actually appears in the frame. One side of his face is clear, the other side is dark. You feel the conflict when he's about to kill Abbott, because one side of him is basically Marie telling him not to, but you can feel that light and dark just clashing with each other, and that is what makes the Bourne Supremacy, as I said, a superior sequel to the original. It not only gives you way more flashbacks and way more things you wanted to see in that first film, it not only improves upon the punching sound effects a lot, but Greengrass does a magnificent job building tension, and of course the payoff to that tension is him just turning off that sound recorder. When I watched that last night, I was just clapping because I was thinking, wow, that was a really tightly wound scene. And now we come to the final act of this film, which is just an action-driven mayhem ride. And like I said, this movie is non-stop. The pacing here is relentless, as we are once again reintroduced to Kirill. Thank God. Because I wanted Karl Urban to have as much screen time as possible, and the fact that he's back into this film just makes me purely excited. As I said before, Bourne was now physically injured with a limp, which he still has toward the ending of this film, but now he actually gets shot. This is the first time, once again, since the beginning of the first film that he's ever been shot. And oh yeah, guys, this leads to one of the best car chases I've seen in the early 2000s. This car chase, I think, is better than the Bourne Identity's car chase. Save for the fact that we don't have the same theme as the Bourne Identity, this theme is fast, it's moving, the chase feels like it has weight. It just feels so good. You can feel the atmosphere and the tension rise through the scene. Sadly, as I hate to see Karl Urban go, but the way he dies is so awesome. So of course, Bourne is able to track down Nevsky's daughter, and he has to literally apologize to her for killing her parents. Now, I'm not a psychological expert or anything, but I gotta say, the ability to have the balls to literally say, I was the one that killed your parents, it's not like your mom killed your dad and then she committed suicide, I was actually the one that killed them. Wow. I mean, that scene is so emotionally powerful. This is one of those things that the Bourne Identity simply just didn't have. So now we come to the last scene of the movie between Bourne and Landy, and she reveals to Bourne what his real name is.
David Webb. That's your real name.
Now originally, the filmmakers were not planning on making a third film. So once the Bourne Ultimatum was announced, they had to literally continue the script, even though it ended with pure finality here. This leads to my two problems with the Bourne Supremacy. The first problem is that I felt like it ended a little too abruptly, and it ended with this, like, fine type closure, and I just didn't think it needed that kind of ending. Of course, I'm taking into account that there is a third film, and I wish it kind of ended on more of a cliffhanger instead of just telling him what his real name was. My second issue with the Bourne Supremacy is that I felt like sometimes the plot was a little bit too convoluted. Yes, it's very complex, and yes, as I said before, it requires you to sit down and really pay attention. But I actually had to write notes down, and I usually don't do that for reviews. If you guys should know one thing about reviews is that I usually ad-lib all of them. Usually it's my analyzed reviews that are the ones that I usually script. So the fact that I had to actually write down notes kind of made it a little bit tricky for me to follow a thorough line of a story. But in the end, guys, I love the Bourne Supremacy. This is one of the best action spy sequels ever made. I actually like this movie more than the Bourne Identity, but it just misses my perfect grade because of those two issues. So in the end, guys, I'm going to give the Bourne Supremacy a solid A. So what did you guys think about the Bourne Supremacy? I'd love to hear all those comments, so send them in the comment section below. And guys, stay tuned next month for my review of the Bourne Ultimatum the week before Jason Bourne comes out. I am so pumped to see this film. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching, and stay tuned.